Food. It is something that we all need to sustain and connect us. It is vital that society learns how to be socially responsible tourists when traveling around various parts of the world, especially when it comes to food choices. In the words of contemporary food activist Michael Pollan, the wonderful thing about food is that you get 3 votes a day. Every one of them has the potential to change the world. Thus, will you choose to get a coffee from a chain store such as Starbucks, or will you make the effort to find a local cafe? Will you grab a quick burger from McDonald's, or will you find a sandwich made with local produce? Will you go to the next big supermarket you see to buy produce for dinner? Or will you ask a local where the closest farmers market is? For some, the effort to research and think about the food choices they are making proves to be a difficult and time-consuming task. Yet, these little choices that we make on the road have a huge impact on the environment, local community businesses, and on the relationship between tourists and the local people. The greater the distance food has traveled from paddock to plate, the greater the transport pollution, and the greater the impact on the health of the people, the land, and the global climate. If not only travelers but everyone in a community chose to consume local foods within 20 kilometers of where it was produced, costs associated with congestion and transport would be cut by at least 9%. Our generation has been brought up as the supermarket generation, where we can find products from all around the globe in the multiple aisles that exist in these huge complexes. We've forgotten what real fresh food is and been disconnected with where our food comes from, how it's treated, and how things are made, including how it is packaged. I found this graphic that relates to America, but the same thing can be said about Australia. American food travels an average of 1,500 to 2,500 miles from a farm to a table, where 60 to 70% of the cost of your food goes to reduction imports. These include fertilizer, oil or gas, water, transportation, and storage, which use limited resources, petrochemicals, and generate greenhouse gases. Moreover, food miles are among the fastest growing sources of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. Furthermore, there is a consensus about the link between distance traveled and the degree of food processing. The longer the distance, the higher the level of food processing required, implying that long-distance transport of food is responsible for additional emissions due to increased food processing and packaging. Currently, I'm living in France, and looking in my fridge, I am guilty of buying maple syrup that was made in Canada. It traveled just over 7,000 kilometers, where I picked it up at the main supermarket in my tiny village. It is vital that we start to think about the choices we make and the impact it has on the environment and local businesses. Local food supports local communities. By walking into a McDonald's and buying a cheeseburger, you are taking a chunk of money away from the local economy. Whilst living in Budapest, I came across Caravan Street Food, which was made up of a range of local vendors selling traditional Hungarian dishes, such as langos or goulash. At the back of the courtyard, there was a community garden in which all the vendors shared and managed. Previously, the area in which Caravan is now, many locals had lost touch with the area due to it being a touristy spot. However, since this local spot has opened up, tourists and locals alike head to the central part. It creates a sense of community with the locals and the tourists. When I was living in Malmö, Sweden, I found a local farmers market which sold cheap fruit and veg. The produce was seasonal, and we got to chat with the farmers who knew everything about the produce, such as where it came from and when it was grown. They were always thankful for us coming every week to buy their produce and would often give us some freebies so that it didn't go to waste. As exchange students from across the globe, it allowed us to come together and cook delicious communal meals using locally grown produce. Currently, I'm living in a tiny self-sustainable village in the French Alps with around 1,500 inhabitants. The French culture is very much surrounded by organic and locally produced foods. In my village alone, there is a place where you can buy locally grown eggs, seasonal fruits and vegetables, a vineyard, and a fromagerie, where you can buy locally made cheese. Every Sunday, there is a local farmers market that I go to. I also found an informal farmers market where you can sell and buy locally grown produce. It is also a place where you can go and volunteer sometimes and help out in the veggie garden to learn about agriculture in France. When you are living out of a backpack and constantly on the road, it is easy to just go to the closest chain supermarket, to your hostel, and pick out the cheapest packaged food. Yet, it is important that you stop and actually think about the impact you are making on the environment, local businesses, and the relationship that you are missing out on by meeting locals and eating their specialties. As a generation, we need to make an effort to reconnect with the sources of our food. We need to support local alternative food solutions to how we produce, distribute, and consume food. We need to take the time to find local fresh food markets. We need to think about how many miles our food has traveled to reach our plate, and we need to think about the CO2 emissions we are letting into the world just to please our stomachs. We need to think about this when we are on the road, but when we are also at home. Support local produce and buy fruits and veg that are in season. So join the local food movement and get involved for a more sustainable food system. Once we start changing the decisions we make about food every day, we will start seeing shifts in our bigger food system.